All right, let's get right into it. Today we're going to tackle a feeling that so many of us have, that no matter how hard you work, you just can't seem to get ahead financially. We're going to break down exactly why that is, using this incredible source as our guide. Okay, let's dive in. So here's the big mystery we're all trying to solve, right? Why does it feel like the price of the things you actually want to own, a house, a decent stock portfolio, is rocketing up on an escalator while your paycheck is just slowly but surely taking the stairs? It's a super frustrating feeling, but the answer isn't just work harder. It's about actually understanding the rules of the game. And that really brings us to our first big idea. The best way to picture this whole situation is to imagine you're in a race, but every time you get close to the finish line, someone just picks it up and moves it further away. And this feeling, man, it's at the core of everything. Those big life goals, what our source calls the entry tickets to the middle class, they always seem to get more expensive right when you're about to reach them. You know the drill. You save up for that down payment and boom, by the time you've got the cash, home prices have jumped again. It's an absolutely exhausting cycle, but believe it or not, there's a real structural reason for it. To really get why this is happening, we've got to jump in a time machine and go back a few decades. Because the fundamental rules of the financial game we're all playing today, they were completely rewritten about 50 years ago. Now look, this wasn't some big, flashy event that everyone noticed. There weren't protests in the streets or anything. For most people, they went to bed one night and woke up the next, and everything seemed pretty much the same. But under the surface, a massive change had happened, one that would quietly reshape finance for the rest of our lives.
And this timeline right here, it shows you the change perfectly. Before August of 1971, the US dollar had a direct link to gold. There was a hard physical anchor on it, which limited how much money could be created. But after 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window. And just like that, he severed the link. The dollar, and really the whole global financial system, was now what we call elastic, or fiat money.
So, what is elastic money? Well, think of it this way. It's a currency that isn't tied to anything physical. Its supply can be stretched and expanded pretty much on demand by policymakers. Now, this gives governments a ton of flexibility to do things like fight recessions. But, and this is a huge but, that flexibility comes with a major trade-off. And that trade-off, that is the key to this whole thing. It's the core concept of what we're talking about today. It's what the source material calls the long, soft squeeze. It's not a sudden crisis. It's a slow, almost invisible pressure that just builds and builds over time. The engine that makes this squeeze happen is a process called debasement. And I know, that word sounds super technical, but the idea is actually incredibly simple. It's just what happens when the total supply of money grows faster than the real-world economy. The actual stuff, the goods and services we produce. You're basically creating more claims on things than there are new things to claim. And this chart, wow, it just lays the whole problem out bare. You see, for long periods of time, the real economy, the stuff we actually make and use, grows at maybe 2–3% a year. But the supply of money? That's often grown way faster, like 7 or 8%. That gap you see between the bars, that is the debasement. It's the silent zone where your purchasing power is slowly being diluted away.
And maybe the best way to think about it is this. Debasement acts like a silent tax. It's a tax on your savings and on your salary. You never get a bill for it in the mail. No politician ever has to vote for it. It just happens, quietly, in the background, year after year. So, and this is so important, that purchasing power doesn't just evaporate into thin air. No, it gets transferred. It's quietly moved away from people who hold cash or earn a fixed salary, and it flows towards those who are closest to the new money, like the government and the big financial institutions that get to use it first before prices have had a chance to adjust.
Okay, so let's see how all this builds into what's been called the wage earner's trap. This is where the rubber really meets the road, and we see who gets hurt the most by this system. This slide just perfectly contrasts the two paths. On one side, you have your income from your job, your salary. You're getting paid in the very thing that's being diluted, and your raises almost never keep up. But on the other side, you have income from capital, from owning things like stocks and real estate. You own the scarce assets that actually soak up all that new money and go up in price. It's simple. Assets lead and wages lag behind. Okay, wait a second. I know what you're probably thinking right now. If all this new money is being created, why isn't a loaf of bread $100? Why isn't consumer inflation through the roof all the time? And that is a fantastic, totally fair question. The answer is that the official number you hear about, the CPI, it really doesn't tell the whole story. There are a few huge reasons for this. First off, the CPI is designed to measure a basket of consumer goods, things like gas and food. It doesn't really do a great job of tracking the soaring price of assets like houses and stocks. Second, and this is a big one, technology is an incredible force for lower prices. I mean, your smartphone today is insanely more powerful and way cheaper, relatively speaking, than a computer from 20 years ago. That pushes down the prices of some consumer goods, and it masks the inflation happening elsewhere. So while the cost of your groceries might seem kind of stable, the cost of those entry tickets to a secure life keeps climbing. So with all that as the backdrop, what is a person supposed to do? Now, this last part isn't about giving financial advice, okay? It's more like what the source material calls a map, a guide for how to navigate this world as a saver. The logic here is actually super simple. It's almost instinctual. If the measuring stick you're using to save, the dollar, is constantly changing and shrinking, you naturally start looking for something that can't be shrunk. You start to seek out real scarcity.
For pretty much all of human history, the classic answer to this problem was gold. It's physically hard to find and produce, so it's scarce. Now, in our digital world, a totally new kind of scarcity has shown up: Bitcoin. It's a digital asset that's secured by code, and its supply is mathematically programmed to be capped at 21 million units forever. They're from different eras, but they both run on the exact same principle. They're an anchor of scarcity in an ocean of easy money.
And this quote really nails the whole point of what we're talking about today. The goal here isn't to get angry or cynical about how the financial system works. It's simply to understand the mechanics, the plumbing, the math, so you can navigate it better. It's about describing the rules of the game as it's actually being played so you have a map. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. See, the thing is, the structural forces that are causing this long, soft squeeze, they're probably not going away anytime soon. So the question really isn't if it will continue. The real question is, what are you going to choose to hold while it does?